Thank God. So, welcome to the 1978 podcast with Don Bauer, who just saved the podcast from it not being recorded because I'm a genius. Don Bauer, what does life mean to you?
What's life
What's
mean
the
to
answer
me?
to all this?
Shoot. We're starting with that question?
If you want. We could start with whatever you want. I'll be honest with you. I'm having a, not the worst moment you could have, but I'm trying to do the podcast thing, obviously. I mean, I'm doing it, but I'm trying to make it better every time. And I had the worst.
Is that like doing the acting thing?
Yeah.
Or the producing thing?
Yeah. I'm going to go to an acting class once every year, and then I'm going to call myself an actor. No, I'm trying to do this like once a week so that I feel semi-legit, like I've made a schedule.
If you made a podcast, you're legit.
Yeah. All you got to do is talk into a mic to your friend for an hour. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, is it interesting? To be determined.
It's perspective.
But life is an interesting conversation topic with you because you've got interesting viewpoints on things. I guess what I was going to say a minute ago is I'm having a moment, and if you'd like to shed a tear for me, you can, but not required. Yeah, just one. Yesterday I did a podcast with an individual that turned into a garbage fire. And it was the first one I did that went south, completely went south. Now, the upside is it's a learning curve, learning process. So what do I gain from that? Well, I need to know what I'm doing and be sure about it and not just jump in 100% like.
Yeah. How did it go south? Like, what do you mean?
The guy was just, I don't know. He wasn't into it. And the way he was talking, it's like he just didn't care to be there. And, maybe it was just a chemistry thing. Like he just didn't want to do this with me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it just I tried to revive it and keep it alive. And it just kept falling apart. And I'm not going to upload it because it just is horrible. It's not entertaining. It's just laughable. It's a mess. It's a disaster.
Yeah, if you could edit it in a way that's just making fun of.
It cut short. I don't like to do short little. To me, a podcast should be something that, the listener viewer can get into and get some insight on something, not just a deteriorating joke slide that gets unfunnier as you go. That's not entertaining or you can't learn anything from that. It's a mess. So there was that last night, and I was like, why? What the hell went that? All right, whatever. You know what? I'm just going to keep pushing forward and do another one and talk to somebody else and have another good one. And that was last night.
End the week on a high note.
Yeah, with you. Thank God.
Woo!
So there's that. And then I'm not trying to have a pity party, but I go for a bike ride today. Got my bike stolen. And
what?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So I'm trying to stuff away this thing. I'm like, all right, that was a mess. Forget it. Whatever, push forward, right? So I go ride my bike, it gets stolen, and I'm just like, here's the stupid part. I go to a public bathroom, there's this long trail thing. There's a public bathroom, but I can't fit the bike in there. It's super small. So I leave it literally against the door so that I took a piss. I could not have been in there more than 3 minutes if I fell asleep. It was gone. And I mean out of sight. And I was down near the beach where you can see a long distance. I come out, I'm like,
gosh.
I was more surprised than angry. I'm like, that guy, it was good because that was fast. He must have been already there thinking this is my spot. Because the minute someone goes in the bathroom, I'm on it. And he must have sprinted and I didn't even hear anything. And this person had a pre-plan. So I'm not as mad. I know. I've gotten so many bikes stolen in this city.
I had right before I left Hollywood and moved to North Hollywood.
Yeah.
My both wheels were stolen from my bike, and I lived in a gated community thingy.
Oh, the house in off.
Yeah, you went to that little house. Remember how it was gated? And, and my little villa was towards the back too. But right behind ours was this little Like if you were a homeless person that was really skinny, you could like weasel in back there. And you could see on the U-lock where they tried to cut the U-lock to steal my whole bike, and they just couldn't get through it at all. So they took both of my wheels, and I have disc brakes and everything. So it was like a complicated thing, but
So they tried to hacksaw the lock. It was obviously not working. So they just took the wheels.
So they took the wheels. And I'm like, Hollywood. Good luck, because you probably don't even have a bike with disc brakes.
The bike that I lost today had all the bells and whistles. But you know what? It's not, to be honest with you, I blame myself a little bit. I can't 100% say this fucking asshole, because I left my bike outside of a restroom and I went to pee. So I didn't lock it up. Now,
you can take responsibility for your own things, but that's not like, that is that person, whether it's a male or a female, we don't actually know. But it's their responsibility, like how they're showing up in the world to do something like that. They knew. That
but that's going to happen. Like you have to, unfortunately, in certain areas, you which I should have done, is assume that that's what happens, because that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, what would you have done differently?
Either held it.
You had to pee.
I had to go pretty bad. I'd been riding for a while and drinking water. That's all I really have to do is like social distance, go on these like long bike rides and sweat it out for something to do / exercise or a run or something. I'm going to be going on a run for a while now until I figure out a new bike situation. But it's like, it's right. I try to like, but here's the sort of the finale is I walk out of the restroom, the bike's gone. And then now I'm pissed about the podcast, because I'm like, it brought me down enough where like everything in my mind was like, and now I'm not as mad about the bike. Now I'm just more mad about this guy. It's like, it's just a bike. I didn't get hurt. It's not the end of the world. It sucks. But the reality is now I'm just mad. And I had this cell phone holder that I could have on the handlebars that worked really well, and it didn't vibrate or whatever. So I could have the like Strava bike tracking app so I could see my progress and keep it up. It made me more mad that I lost that, because I had to track that down on the internet. It wasn't easy to find because it's a unique one. I was more mad about that. So, the bike is just like,
what's the thing that you're mad about the most with the podcast?
I wouldn't say that I'm mad the most. I say I'm just more let down than anything, because the person I had on the podcast yesterday, I've known them for a while, and I felt really disrespected that they, I said, do you want to, it's like, I'm inviting you to be on my podcast, which you may look at it different than me. This is me thinking, but in my eyes, this is my sort of thing that I'm putting together, that I'm working on. I haven't perfected it. And it's a creative outlet for me. And to come on and do what he did, and it is a combination of things. Play ball, or just say I have to go.
Right.
Don't.
Did you feel like he was wasting your time?
Absolutely.
Is that part of it? Yeah.
Absolutely. There were no signs that he didn't want to do it, but after we had started and we were 15 minutes in, it was like he didn't want to be there, and I felt like I was getting the vibe that he was kind of telling me I'm wasting his time in so many words.
Wouldn't it be nice if people would just be direct about things?
I prefer it. I prefer it. It might be harder to take at the head of it for someone to say, "Look, I just don't like you, and I want to leave."
Yeah, that but might be more direct without being rude.
I guess I'm being really blunt.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but okay. So let me rephrase that. He
could have just been like, what?
He could have said, "Look, this is feeling awkward to me. It's not what I thought it was going to be. Do you mind if we just cancel this?" And I would have been like, "What the hell?" But I wouldn't have felt like an asshole and felt disrespected, at least.
Right.
So yeah, that would have been great. But that's all. So another point that I was going to make is that would have been podcast number 10, but now you're going to be podcast number 10. So I'm going to have this.
Is that like
you're my first double digit? Yeah.
Celebration time.
Not really, because
podcast number 10.
Well, yeah, for the double digit. Yeah, for sure. To me, I guess I have a little bit more growth.
Podcast number 10, dance.
A little Bananarama or whatever.
Ooh, I don't know.
It's a good one. It's
Making it up as I go.
Double digits is good, but I think, to be honest with you, if I really want to like try to look at this in a positive light, I don't know. You probably don't watch like martial arts or boxing, I would assume.
My cousin is Drew Dober. He's a UFC MMA fighter.
That last name sounds familiar.
Watch a little bit of that.
Well, what I hear a lot from announcers and stuff when you watch fights, when someone's just riding high and they're doing really well and they lose, I'd say most, if not every time you hear the coaches, announcer, they say he's going to learn a lot from this loss and come back stronger. So I'm not saying I took a fight and lost, but the sensation of getting it all together and doing the thing and then having it come apart and the wheels come off, I've essentially failed in some manner, is how I see it. And after being just kind of like annoyed by it and wanting to shut it out, but then sort of having it come back, sort of coming back in a funny way, and talking about it with my wife, I was like, you know what? This made me realize that not all of these are going to win. I can't have this spectacular, amazing conversation where we get into these cool subjects and have enlightenment every time. Some of them are going to suck, and when they suck that bad, the upside is just don't put them online. I don't upload because it's just a lost, episode, so to speak.
There's a presupposition we use in NLP, and it goes like this: there is no failure, only feedback. Which is exactly what you're
Could you go into that? So let's talk about that. Something you've been doing, and I don't really know a lot about it. You have mentioned it very little to me, to the point where I just can't say I know what it is. Why don't you enlighten me?
So people probably have different definitions of what it is, but neuro-linguistic programming is what NLP stands for.
Yeah.
So neuro meaning the brain, the neurons, linguistic meaning the language, and programming. So we have a programming in our mind, in our unconscious mind. So, so if you think about from the moment you're born, every piece of information that's coming in to you from the five senses, so everything we see, hear, feel, touch, taste, our unconscious mind remembers 100% of all of that. Our conscious mind is only holding on to 3%. And so the patterns and the behaviors and the beliefs that we have in our unconscious mind that are constantly affecting like the choices that we make and the actions and the behaviors, right? Those, we're not always aware of them or where they came from. Sometimes it doesn't matter where they came from. And those patterns and habits are great if they're helping us move forward, like if they're keeping us alive. But sometimes we've created patterns and behaviors in a moment, and then they were reinforced by other moments in our lives that we don't need anymore. So in the moment, they were keeping us safe. And then anything that was kind of connected, ooh, this is kind of like that thing. And then now we've got this reinforcement. But for people that are trying to move forward in a career or trying to create a new business or working on relationships, that kind of thing, and they're self-sabotaging, it's because there's some pattern belief, habit that they have that's holding them back. And so what I do as a coach, and so I found out about this because I went to this event in January 2017, and I started getting coached completely. So it was like not long after I left LA. Yeah. And, when I left LA, I was just like, I need to do something.
Yeah. You weren't doing this at all when you lived down here? I thought there was something you were a part of. I guess I'm crossing the wires. There's something you were like, hey, this is really cool. Just inviting your friends kind of thing. But I don't know if it was NLP. Something else.
Yeah, I don't think it was NLP. It definitely wasn't NLP. I didn't find out about NLP till January 2017. So I got coached, completely changed my life. Changed my relationships with all my family members. She got out of debt.
Wow.
just shift, like I'm doing something I never thought I'd be doing. And so a year ago, I decided, over a year ago, I decided to get certified. So a year ago, I got certified
as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so I've been building my business for a year, and I do this full time, and I still do acting whenever I can get a job. I'll have an acting job next week. But with my clients, it's like anything from like, why can't I lose weight? I really want to, but a part of you doesn't, right? Why can't I make this relationship work? Or why do I keep falling into the same situations? There's a pattern there, so it's fun. Yeah. It's fun, but then we can go in there and we can go into the unconscious mind. So versus a regular talk therapy type, coaching or therapy session, you're reliving the story. So you're hanging out in the conscious mind. You're reliving the story by retelling it. Mm-hmm.
Is it like, when you coach, are you talking to this individual and they say, here's my issue that I'd like to dive into?
Yeah.
And then you go
so we
into
get
that
really
issue.
clear on what that issue is.
Yeah. And so you address that specific.
Yeah. So then I'm listening not to the content, but the context of what they're saying. So I'm trying to get to the underlying beliefs and figure out what that is. And then it's like, oh, we're dealing with some patterns of unworthiness here, our belief that we're unworthy.
Yeah.
And so then we can go back in the unconscious mind. So there's a little bit of a hypnotic language to it. It's usually a lot of the process are closed eye processes, and we can change those like instantly.
Do you use hypnotism?
Don't use hypnotism, but we do use hypnotic language sometimes.
Do you think it's funny, maybe not funny, but it's really interesting to me how many different forms of, I guess I could qualify it as self-help. There's so many. Obviously, some of them are super weird and like probably rip-offs. It's definitely a to each his own thing, because there's no like, okay, everyone of the world, 300 billion of you, whatever, or, U.S. is like, 320 million, but across you can't just blanket and say, hey, everyone, this thing here, this book, this is it. This works for everyone. That's it. No other choice, There has to be variation.
What I will say is this. With NLP, there's constantly this growing of processes and pulling from things that are working. But when you change something at the unconscious level, whether you're using NLP or some other kind of therapy that's going into the unconscious mind, it's like if you have this weed and you keep clipping it, and then it just keeps growing back. You keep clipping it, grows back. We're going down deep where the seed was planted.
Pull the roots
and we're pulling it out at the roots.
Right.
So
that's the way to solve any problem, is to completely eradicate
it.
It.
So whether it's NLP or something else, it's going down to the root. Right. I would say that those would be better than if you're just sitting here and just like talking about your story and then getting the counselor's advice, like you said. That's somebody else giving you advice about your life, and it's very invasive. We don't do that. We are asking questions in a way of getting you to understand as the client that you have the resources. You have the wisdom to solve your own problems. You have all of that inside of you. I'm just helping guide you.
Yeah.
So I don't come in like, I know everything.
Yeah. You can only lead a horse to water though, right? Like you can only coach, and they have to do some of the work. Absolutely.
If they are not willing to change that. So when they go to my website and schedule a little free chat, one of the questions on the little questionnaire, the last one is, are you ready to change?
Yeah.
If they're not ready to change, there's no way.
And you probably get people that want it and they say yes to all that. When they get to you, you realize it's going to take a mountain to... You're gonna have to move a mountain to get this person to change their behavior, to lose weight or whatever it is.
Yeah. They have to trust the process. They have to trust themselves is the biggest thing. And we have to have rapport. So like you were talking about that guy yesterday, like maybe there wasn't rapport there. or maybe rapport.
I thought there was. That's the weird thing is it really did feel like I've known the person long enough. I'm not in this person's day-to-day life, but I've known them long enough to know who they are and how they act. It's just that it went from, hey, buddy, all right, cool, blah, 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 to like disinterest and mocking from his end. And it was like, maybe this is how this person gets along. To me, it felt disrespectful and it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And we weren't talking about anything deep. It was all just this like sort of light surface level. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like some people might get on here and realize, hey, I'm being recorded, and then they're not being genuine anymore because they're filtering, and I don't always have a filter.
You know what? When people, I've noticed through my work that there's varying degrees of, how do I put it? Someone that's, so take the call sheet. So at the top of the call sheet, a call sheet is where you have the, for a production and who, what time to show up. And on a call sheet, you have all the names of the people showing up. And the famous saying is below the line. So on a call sheet, below the line is the small people. Above the line is the name people, the director, producer, DP, whoever, actor. If you were to use that as an example, so from the bottom of the list to the top, the guy at the bottom of the list, guy or girl, they could tweet out and Instagram, feminism can get lost and I'm a Nazi, right? Mm-hmm. No one's going to care. Maybe they get kicked off or maybe nothing happens. Now, if the director, who's known by the world, let's say, it's fans everywhere, the director does the same thing, all of a sudden you're on TMZ and you're getting your career shutting down. So
people need a news story.
Well, true. I think that it's interesting how when you kind of get a deeper foothold in the public eye, you're more affected by negativity and you have to watch your actions. And the reason I say that is some people they get ahead of themselves. I'm not saying this about anybody. I think this is just a observation on my point.
Yeah.
Some people in the entertainment industry, and I've seen this happen in the past, they start to think that their britches are bigger than they are, and they start to sort of take on the persona of somebody who's important, and they sort of like, I guess, self-validate, and they think that they are more than they are, and their conversations get filtered. They filter their own conversations, but when you're talking to them or you're in this conversation or group, you hear how they're acting and filtering themselves, and you're thinking, boy, you really think that the world's concerned about you, and it's obvious no one cares. So, I think sometimes, like, what made me think of that is that you said, when they're recorded and they can start, that could be very true. Some people start to sort of get in their head, like, who's going to see this maybe, and this is online forever, and that thought sort of snowballs. And then they hit the brakes and they go, wait a minute, I better not, but I'm here. And I don't know.
Can I just share something that is off topic, but on topic? It is about a boy, a man.
We got to go into your boy stories, by the way.
Oh my God.
The adventures of Don.
But it has to do with recording.
Oh.
So, somebody found me on like this marketing Facebook page and friend requested me. And as you've seen, sometimes when people friend request me, I get some interesting messages from people. So I'm very weary about who I accept.
She accepted my friend request. She must want to talk to me. She must want to have a long...
She must want a dick pic.
Yeah.
Can I say that? Can you filter that out?
Oh, you say whatever you want. I don't care.
She must want a dick pic.
So by you saying, sure, we can be friends, sort of opens this floodgate. What were you going to say? And we're going on. Go to that story, though.
Yeah, this is... Okay, so because of that, though, because I've had those,
Yeah.
I'm like weary. And so this guy, he was just like, hey, I noticed that we had a bunch of people in common. He lives in LA. I thought maybe we could be friends, and I'd love to do a coffee chat, over Zoom, because we're in the middle of COVID at this point, right? So nobody can meet. He thinks that I still live there.
Oh.
And so he must have dug deep into my profile, because I don't have anywhere where I live.
All your current like media is all Denver, so he must have gone to the bottom of the.
I don't know where he was, because I don't even have where I live right now. I just have where I'm from.
Was his intention like, let's go on essentially a virtual date? Like a first date?
Well, no, that's not his.
So it's a
I
chat.
think maybe that was his intention, but he was like, let's have a coffee. And I was like, if this is somebody who's trying to pursue as a date, this is very classy. This is not a dick pic. This is actually, I want to meet you in person as much as we can be on Zoom.
Like full on manners and being a gentleman about
yes.
it. Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
You say yes, like I couldn't believe it.
It was amazing. So very, nice guy.
Yeah.
We hit it off.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then he was like, to be honest, I found you to be beautiful. And I thought,
here it
I
comes.
just wanted to see if we had a connection first.
Oh, yeah.
So we connected, and then we were chatting every single day.
Were you feeling the vibe? Were you like, this is cool, this is interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like going in a direction of like, hey, maybe I'll, I try to get out to LA as much as possible.
Yeah.
Whenever they open things up again, maybe I can come out and meet you. We can meet in person.
Yeah.
Like, let's, whatever. What harm is this? Chatting every day, and he's sending me, different YouTube videos and things. Yeah, and just like very much an intellectual stimulation too.
Keeping it friendly and cordial for now.
And then, and I realized that it just kind of was just that kind of information. There wasn't any flirting or anything going on. And then all of a sudden he said something that was very flirtatious, and it just caught me off guard. And I was like, I think we need to have another virtual date. Like, we haven't seen each other again. It's been a while. It's been maybe a month or something. And I asked him, I was like, I'd like to share some things with you, because I was actually starting to, like this guy and think, oh, this could wouldn't that be cool if this was something? What a story,
Yeah.
And I wanted to share that with him. And I just said, yeah, I want to share some things with you. And he's like, yeah, I really prefer being spontaneous. I don't know why you want to set this up. And I'm just thinking,
set up a Zoom?
Yeah. I'm like, if I lived in LA, and he started it off with that, with a Zoom meeting, I was like, if I lived in LA and we were going on a date, we would still schedule a time together. Like, we're not going to just.
But you had done one video call previously,
at the beginning. Right. And then we were just like, we would do like video.
How did that first one go? The first video call?
It was great.
Everything seemed legit?
Yeah. And we talked on the phone, and we did video chat and different things.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, it was just a request. And I was kind of like, I think I'm done with this guy. And I just said, well, it was just a request. And I kept making dinner. And then he messaged back, and he's like, okay, when do you want to do it? I'm sorry, let's go ahead and schedule it. Let's get this scheduled. So we scheduled it. And so we're sitting here on Zoom, and I can tell he's just like all over the place. He's not like sitting down and present. I'm like, he does not want to be here. Like,
yeah.
What is this even? And he sat down, and I was like, so I want to get really vulnerable with you.
This is you talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I saw the record button go on.
Ew.
Thank you.
What?
And I paused.
And he didn't tell you he was doing that?
No, he did not ask me permission. He didn't say anything. He just went like this. And I go, why are you recording? And he goes, I want to get this. I want to hear this. I want to record this.
And your heart goes like blue, and you're like, oh God, what the hell is this now?
Right. And so when you were talking about like, where is it, like people thinking about like, if I'm being recorded, where is this going to go? I'm thinking, I don't know what he's going to do with this information. Like, what does he think I'm going to say?
But you had said, I want to get vulnerable, or something to effect of like, I want to see where we're at, like emotionally.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about, because I was already feeling like things were maybe a little bit off, but I thought what would feel better is if we could have a date again versus just messaging back and forth.
It sounds like you almost wanted to gauge what the level of interest he had, like to know more like where this was heading.
Because he's like, when are you coming out? And I'm just thinking, I don't know if I'm there yet, but I wanted to gauge this and then see if maybe we could plan something.
Sure.
For me to come out. So yeah, I've talked to a few people about it, and I kept talking, but I was very filtered.
Oh wait, so when he recorded and you said, why are you recording?
He's like, I want to keep. So in my mind, I was thinking, what are all the possible reasons for this? And I'm like, okay.
I have to say, my first thought and I'm just going to inject here, but when initially right there, when I first heard you say, then hit record, but you had said, I want to talk, like I want to have a real talk. I'm thinking, so this is his thing, is he gets these women to like start saying things that sound maybe even just the slightest bit like, I don't want to say sexual, but like hinting in that road, and then that's what he's after, and it gets him off or something, like having these videos that are real videos to him.
I don't know. And I actually, I had chatted with him later because
where did this video call go though? How did it wrap up?
Yeah. So in the moment, I was just like, this feels uncomfortable. I felt sick to my stomach. It just like all the intuition in me was like, this does not feel right. Like who would do
I'm a
that?
guy
like,
and I feel like it's not right.
Thank you. Because I've mostly talked to women about this and they were like, oh no, hell no.
Hell doesn't know.
But I forgot what I was just going to say.
So you felt your intuition said no, and this guy was recording.
My intuition absolutely, said no. And I was going to say that trust is a big, huge deal for me. But one of my top 5 values for relationships, it doesn't matter if it's an intimate relationship or family or friends, is trust.
Yeah.
I need to be able to know that I can trust the people that I'm with, and I want them to absolutely know they can trust me.
And you can only, and I think this is my opinion, I'll be honest with you, when I first started dating Lauren, she was the first woman that I had a real, true to my soul sensation of trust.
Yeah, it's important.
And you can only gauge that. Like I could never see it. It's not a verbal thing. You have to physically notice that they're acting in a manner that shows trust through action, because otherwise it could be fake. You have to see the proof.
Yeah.
If you're going to like, I'm going to spend my life with you. I I dated before that, and I know everyone has stories, but it's like it'd be, this is like pre-cell phone, so it's different, but you'd be like, have a pager, and usually you hang out like Friday night, like if you're dating, or maybe a couple times in the week, but most of the time it's like Friday, Saturday are like the nights. So I don't hear from her. And then Sunday at like 2 p.m. comes around and I get a text from a number or a page from a number. I call her. She's in Vegas. She goes, you should come out. I was like, see ya. Like, all right. Like you've been there Friday and Saturday night. You're done. It's done. It's the end of the day on Sunday.
For a couple hours. I'm coming home tonight.
Yeah. How about I drive out there for 5 hours and I'll be there at 7 p.m. on Sunday, and I'll have that last 1% of energy that you got left, sloppy, drunk, puke on yourself, and we'll hang. I was like, all right. So I was like, yeah, you got to have trust, because if you don't, what do you got? It's a one-night stand or a 1 week stand, or it's nothing, because
So it was just like,
but I want to know
he
where
doesn't trust me, and he needs to record me. But it was like,
where did that
moment?
Where did that recorded conversation go? Like, how did that wrap up?
So I kept saying what I was saying, but I did not go as vulnerable as I wanted to.
Right.
And then it was like, he just kind of seemed peeved, and then throughout the conversation, he was kind of loosening up, and he was smiling, and I was like, okay, like we were kind of building this connection again. And so I said, well, I was thinking, and then I thought, well, okay, let me just throw this out there. Maybe I will come out and see him. But still, I was totally aware
Yeah.
that this whole thing was still being recorded. He never stopped recording it. And I said, okay, I'll look at dates and get back to you at the end. And I just sat on it for 2 days because I got up and I was just like, this doesn't feel right. And I, shared it with some people. And 2 days later, he's like, so where are we at with those messages? And I was like, you know what? I decided not to come out.
Yeah.
I'm not, coming out. And then I think he could tell that something had shifted, but he still wasn't even calling it out. And speaking about being direct, and I thought, I'll tell him. I don't have a problem telling him why I don't want to talk to him anymore, but maybe I don't have to if he just goes away. And so we didn't really communicate for a while. And then he sent me a message. I think he said maybe he was trying to see if there was any kind of maybe hanging out or coming out or whatever later. And I said, you know what, honestly, I have to let you know, I did not like that you started recording me in that conversation. It felt really icky.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at all. I felt like in the moment that I was the most vulnerable with you, you totally just took away that trust in a moment. As soon as you started recording, you didn't even ask my permission. I was like, it felt really gross. I don't know what your intentions were. And it doesn't even matter at this point because I realized in that moment, I didn't want to go meet him because I was just kind of disgusted with him.
Yeah.
There was no
totally
attraction at all after that. It was gone.
It's like he like you said, a trust. He took away your confidence like crazy. That's a really big red flag. It's like, and the weird part is had he said something really disgusting that would shut it down to the point where you'd hang up and be 150% sure, that would be one thing. But he did something that's like this lingering thing. I don't know.
Yes.
Is it bad?
And I feel like that happens all the time. And so that was the other thing I was going to say. So in the moment, it felt really icky, but my brain was thinking, what are all the possible reasons of him recording? And this is what I chose to land on so that I could keep functioning in the conversation. I chose to land on, even though I kept myself filtered, I chose to land on, what if he does see a future? And again, this is a really funny story because then he can be like, remember that time when you shared with me that you might have feelings or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I was thinking
you maintained a positive attitude through that. Hey,
life is
good.
all about choices. I'm like, if I don't know why he's recording, as soon as I saw it recording, I called it out. I was like, do you really think, I was just kind of like,
do you think he did?
I use Zoom on a daily basis. You don't think I know what the little recording button means over there?
What was his? Did it come across when you said that maybe he thought you wouldn't know? He'd be able to hide it?
I don't know. I don't know.
People are so weird.
He was like, I just want to get this. I want to get this. And it wasn't like, oh, you didn't notice I was recording. It was just like, the weirdest thing. You're not even going to ask?
Did it come from something? Was there a conversation the day before that was like, hey, I want to talk to you tomorrow about touching you? Did something come up? I can't was it
no.
Was there a phone erotic kind of conversation and this was the next step and he's like, I want to save this?
No.
Nothing?
No. Yeah, that's why I think that your first theory is there was nothing leading into that. I almost thought, I don't even know. I was like, what does he even think that I'm going to say here?
Yeah.
I think what I said in the conversation before is I said, I think, I've noticed, I said, I don't know. I feel like I've been distant. I said, I feel like I've been distant. And I think I realized why. And I'd love to share that with you.
This is what you were telling him.
This is what I said to him. So if you're asking me what was the conversation the day before to finally, when I asked him to request a date, I was requesting a date is what I was doing.
So odd.
And he was like, I just need to be spontaneous. Anyway, that conversation was, he's like, well, can't we just, what? And I was like, no, I really would like to, I have something that I want to share with you, some insights that I came to that I understand about myself now. And I'd like to share those with you and look at you in the eye.
Yeah. Not a text or whatever.
Right. Not a text or a call or a recording.
This is a real conversation that could potentially be foundational communication of a relationship, and I want it to have meaning.
Yeah, like what are we doing here? Like it's like I know we're in two different cities, but if we're having, if it's worth
it needs to feel real. It needs to feel like you care and that you're there, and I'm not talking to someone that's paying attention to something, all that.
Yeah. So it was
it's not your buddy's like sports like thing and you got two other things going on, it's
right. But it's just like, why does that need to be recorded?
I think being a woman anytime has got there's so many more things women have to do. So I feel like women have to do a lot more in life than men. They just have to do more in general.
I think you're right. I think you might be right.
And I'm not like saying that to just make the certain, demographic happy. It's like there's just more that women have to do. Pregnancy and the dating thing is more dangerous for women, and getting a job is potentially harder for women, and it could be, in this day and age, unfair in certain ways. And guys are, the whole sexual thing with guys about, looking at women and the way they talk to women, and the, like there's the very few men that would take an offense to a woman saying something sexual towards them. They'd like it. But I would guess that almost every woman, or very, very few women would be against, or would be appreciate you saying something sexual to them. So it's like, guys, unless
you're in a relationship, you know what I mean? Yeah. If you're in a relationship, please. But
the mentality is like guys are okay with anything, but women don't want to be talked to like that. So you've got this what's the word? Not catch-22, but it's just like it's harder for women in that sense as well. So yeah, every time you have had not a lot, I'd say I've seen maybe 5 times where you post about like, I can't believe what just happened, and this guy did this, or like said something, and I'm like, really? That guy said that?
Yeah, let me just say this to the camera. If you plan on sending me any kind of messages, it will be blasted on social media.
Boom.
So don't do it.
I gotta throw an Arnold in there.
And so will your fake.
That.
Ready?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, how does your NLP play into all this? Like, if you were to apply it to yourself, have you taken as well as given these?
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, if you're trained.
So, yep, I was.
Is this a subject you've had to sort of get some healing on, I guess?
With men?
I guess, but.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to drudge anything up for you, but.
Relationships. Yeah.
You tend to be, and I'm not talking, this is not a negative thing, but you are a woman I know of. I'm not going to categorize you, but
I wanted to talk about categories today.
Well, I want to say this nicely, but it's also just my opinion. And, I've met women that are attractive that go on dates all the time and their standards are super low. I've met that. You're not that person. So I think having standards and being on like the upper end of the 10s, I guess, like it's probably a different kind of like a tough game to play in a way. I don't want to like, I'm not trying to sound sort of, chauvinistic or anything with that, but it's my point of view that like, there's these categories, and, it sucks to say, but a woman that's less attractive doesn't get hit on as much. And the woman that's more attractive gets this attention from men that may or may not be wanted. And then on top of that, you've got a heavy filter for the BS. So you're like getting all these things incoming. And you're like, no. And I was wondering with the NLP. So do you sort of self teach, self apply? How does it work for that? You use the technology.
Yeah, I mean, so I was coached before I became a coach, and there was definitely a lot of looking at patterns of the men I was choosing at the time when I started getting coaching, and why I was choosing those men, and you know, I think it does. You know, you're talking about I think you called it a heavy filter. I like that.
Yeah. In a good way.
Or high standards would be another way of saying it. And there's definitely times when I have lowered my standards, because there are times that I'm like, I go back and forth. It's like, maybe they're too high. Yeah. And this person doesn't exist. And what am I willing? What am I like? I have to have these things. Yeah. And what am I willing to waver on? And sometimes it does come down to a feeling of energy, and I have to be with that, person in person.
Yeah.
I've dated a couple people in the last couple of years that I met in person first that I wouldn't have swiped right on or whatever, I wouldn't have.
Oh, you met these people in person, but had they just been a picture on an app, you'd have been like, no.
I wouldn't have swiped on them.
Right.
But the energy of the person is so amazing that, it's this connection. And so
you can never get that on an electronic.
It is challenging.
Because you can't pick up on that on an app.
You can't.
Not to mention, I think guys are, well, I really don't have any hard evidence to speak from, but from my point of view, I never go out trying to take really nice pictures of myself. So most guys probably are that way. So when you go on an app, you're getting like him, like making a dumb face. And that's all you have to go on is that
or
one
you have
image.
The men that do take lots of selfies of themselves,
which is also kind of odd.
It's like a balance of like, I don't want that, and it is hard, and I don't know that online dating is the answer. I think it's possible. I think people have met the love of their lives on there. Oh really?
Yeah,
that's awesome. I forgot. I think I did hear that.
I might have told you the story. This is
Was it on Match?
Craigslist.
It was on Craigslist.
Yeah.
But that was way back when Craigslist was cool.
This was just before smartphones. So it was like, I've heard this story from like a number of friends. I'm the guy who doesn't necessarily enjoy the bar scene. Mm-hmm. So before the app, what do? I go to Safeway and get a shopping cart and just start bumping into people. Right. There's a lot of options if you're not interested in going to parties and stuff.
Right.
Well,
and with COVID, I think people, it's like, oh my God, I can't go to the bars. I can't go out. So
I bet Tinder is exploding.
Probably. I don't know. I'm not on Tinder.
Yeah.
But I think that there's been
all that.
Yeah, a flux of people reaching out.
Everything that's app based. I read something about Amazon, people buying apps and purchases within the apps. They're like 1,000% higher because everyone's just sitting around the house. Right. So if you're not going to a bar, you're just sitting on the app, and then the thing says, "Hey, you want to spend $1 and get the extra upgrade?" Sure. So anybody that's got Apple, iTunes, Jeff Bezos, all these people are just blowing up financially because people are sitting on the couch.
Back to your thing. It is hard. I'm hoping that this podcast will bring me a mate, Alex.
You are? Let's see. What do I got? Anything around here?
If I get a mate off of this podcast, that would be great.
I was looking at, throw your email out there and let's see how many dick pics you get.
I don't want that kind of mate. Eventually.
If you did put your email out there, all 5 of the listeners that I get, one of them might. So I was looking at the, So I was looking at the, what do you call it? The analytics and stuff like that. And it's strange how I can't look at, I don't know how to use analytics for YouTube. So I put this on YouTube, but I also put it on Anchor and iTunes and stuff. Anchor you can get information. It'll correlate information for all the sites, all the podcast sites that you're on. And there's people listening to the podcast, the audio version, Iran, Ukraine, Ireland. I'm like, I'm not marketing this at all.
Yeah.
Except for
they're
my
just finding
Instagram.
you.
It's weird. So yeah, I mean, you never know who ends up listening. You really don't.
I think I know
Don
someone
Bauer
who can help you with the
Don Bauer is
analytics.
located in a city in Colorado in the United
Near a
States.
lake with dead fish.
If you're near a dead fish lake, if you're listening to this and you can't see, she's about 7.5 feet tall, and no, I'm just
Actually, 7 and 4.
7'4", just shy of 7.5 feet. Her fingers are 16 inches long, so
Oh yeah.
they're like tentacles. All right, I'm done making fun of you. I'm sorry. I doubt that
Ridiculously
you'll
long
get.
arms, I've heard.
Oh yeah, got to hit that vodka. I doubt you'll find someone through this. Maybe the YouTube, because if you could see you, that is going to help
It's
you out.
disappointing. This is
Well,
going to be another crash and burn podcast for you.
oh God, you are not possible of a crash and burn. I knew that when I texted you. Yeah, people are weird.
It's a challenge.
Communication is. I never thought of it as something I'd want to get an education on, like a master's, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's such an interesting subject because it's so organic and it can just change, and everyone is just so different about it. We're all the same species, but there's languages, and then within those languages, there's inflection, and then you can be talking the same language and have the same inflection. Who knows where it could go? You're talking to the guy, and then everything seems okay, and then you tell him something real, and then he goes, record. What?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, what is going on?
World? This is the weirdest thing.
People are
I was like,
strange.
well, that's the end of that. But,
He's got a hard drive full of Zoom conversations with women, Oh, God, watch the one where she says, I got to go. Watch the one where she covers the camera and shuts it off. That's all he's got.
It's,
Who knows?
and then I just have to say, well, that wasn't the one.
Yeah.
I think what's nice about getting clear on what you are looking for is that it's easier to identify quickly.
Yeah.
And know that, hey, this is not the one. And the real truth is that a lot of people could work. It's like the main thing is if they're willing to keep growing as a human being and willing to work on a relationship with me. We're talking about a relationship with me.
Yeah.
And learning about each other and growing together and growing as an individual. Like there's not that many people that I have found. So I don't know where I'm looking. I'm looking in the wrong places that are willing to do that. A lot of gay men.
Yeah.
That's not going to help me.
I know. I think that there's a lot of categories. You know how like an equalizer works is like bass and treble. With people, it's almost like uncountable the amount of, well, this person is really talkative, but they don't stop talking. And this person is really nice, but they don't talk. It's just like you could go on with, and like finding a mate, no matter if you're a guy or a girl, finding a compatible that ends up working out for a long time and you have a relationship for your whole life or the majority of it or some, enough to call it a success to whatever degree you find that. It's almost like you're throwing BBs at little pinholes in the wall, hoping one makes it through. It's like they're all gonna. He has to be in a perfect, toss.
Right, and I think that's the thing. It's like there's this belief that it just has to like fit all these things, and instead of what might I have to be willing to compromise.
Well, you start asking yourself that when you have a run or maybe just enough of in your life attempts or instances where the person is just not right. You start to say, okay, is it me? I do that. Right. That's what I did last night with that podcast. I said, this is not working. What can I do? And I tried to resurrect it 3 times. I'm like, I could contemplate for the rest of the time, but I'll never have an answer. And not only it's not important enough for me to try to dig that up What is important is that I just move forward and learn from it. That's the key, especially in that situation.
And, in my opinion, that is the right way to go, is first, look at ourselves.
Yeah.
First, look at ourselves and say, what can I do better? This isn't working, or this thing didn't work, or that thing, how I handled that situation yesterday didn't work, or whatever the thing is. How can I do better? What is mine to own? What is my responsibility? What can I shift in the future in a similar situation? And then not beat yourself up about it. Like, give yourself, sometimes I was just telling a client the other day, I'm like, how long are you willing to give yourself? 24 hours?
For what?
Are you willing to give yourself 24 hours to sit there and think about, what could I do better?
Can you give us some context on that? You're asking a client to do what?
Let's just say with your podcast guy.
Yeah.
How long are you willing to give from the moment that it happened to let yourself sit here and think and run in your head? What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What can I do better in the future? And then at 24 hours, is that like whatever?
Well,
I'm done with that. And now the rest of it's on him. And now I'm not going to beat
when I
myself up
realized that it was not working and I ended it, you're saying, what do I do as far as how long will I let it be an issue for me until I'm past it? Is that kind of?
So what I'm saying is, if there's a chunk of time, like, you know what, I'm going to let myself for 2 days, just make it about me. And what can I have done better? And what am I going to do differently? And then after that, I'm going to not do that anymore, because now I'm just beating myself up. Now I'm just like going to be angry and resentful, whatever, and let that go. Store the learnings. Okay, this is what I'm going to do better in the future.
Sure.
And then let it go and say, okay, we're moving forward. We got new podcasts. I learned from that experience, right? That there's no failure, only feedback. We were chatting about before.
Yeah.
And now the rest of that's on him. And
I'll
you're
be
not
honest,
in charge of what he learns. He's not going to, you don't know if he's going to learn anything or not, but you can just let that go.
I thought about putting it on him immediately when I ended it and stopped the recording, and I just went and watched a movie or something. And I thought, I didn't think about this like as we're in the way we're talking about it, sort of in a conscious problem solving sense. It was more just quick thoughts. But I did think, why would he do that? And I was thinking about him in the sense of, in the sense that he created the problem, which quickly turned into, I can't blame this person because I don't have enough information to know where they are mentally. I'm not saying he's crazy. I'm just saying I don't know what's going on in his life.
Right.
I don't know if I said something that triggered. There could be really an unimaginable amount of reasons why something could have switched. So rather than think I'm going to blanket and I'm not trying to sound like I'm perfect here, but rather than think I'm going to be a better guy, I'm not going to blame him. That's not where my head was at. My head was, I'm not going to waste my time wondering if he had an issue.
Right.
And I sort of escalated to, so he is not going to be the route to a solution. The route to the solution is within me, and I'm not, I hate if I come off like I'm trying to sound, like some, Gandhi or whatever, but,
no, but I think you're making the point that I'm trying to make. I think that's the difference. That's the key difference. Like, there's so many people that are willing to just be like, I'm not going to deal with this thing. That is your fault. I'm going to blame. I'm going to point my finger everywhere else and not look at me at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a healthy thing to do.
It took
Sometimes
me a lot
it is everybody else.
It wasn't until I was in like my early to mid 30s to like mature enough to say, I need to look at me.
Right.
It took me a long time.
We're the only thing we can change. We're the only, if we can change our own perspective about things. And so I think, that's the kind of people I want to have in my life. Again, whether they're friends or intimate people or whatever, is people that are willing to say, what can I do better?
Yeah.
And then move on. Like, not stay in the whirlwind.
It's sad
of
that
it.
there are way less people that can drop the ego, like that you'd feel comfortable saying, hey, I don't like what you just did, and know that they're mature enough to say, oh, really? What went on? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
My pool is small.
It makes me nervous about the world that there's fewer people that can just accept criticism, acknowledge things. And it isn't like everyone needs to say, you're right, I'm wrong. It's just objectively look at the situation and say, listen to the person, and they're saying, I'm hurt, I'm mad, I'm whatever. And just fucking listen. Let them talk and listen. And when they're done, you say, I'm confused. I didn't know, and just go through that rather than, I don't care. And just kind of just defend.
Or get defensive.
Yeah. I mean, if the majority of the people could just relax, boy, it'd be a better world, I think.
And I'm curious if it's everywhere in the world or if it's mostly in America or in America and other.
I don't know. I've done so little travel out of the country, and the little I've done, I can say that the populous places, the San Francisco, the Dublin, where there's a heavy constant, I think that the higher the density of people, I think that amplifies that, get out of my way. It's not my fault. I don't have time for you. But when you have less population, it's almost like that directly translates into more patience.
Maybe it's slower. It's just life is slower.
Not necessarily even slower, but just there's you're getting less, frequency,
Stimulus.
Blockage, things in your
less
way.
dense populations, though, do tend to be there. It's not like people are when you're describing San Francisco, and I'm thinking New York City, and I remember going to Manhattan for the first time and just like, oh my God, this is not for me. The energy was just like,
it's real.
But just, there is a slower pace when there is a smaller population and there's not as much stimulation and stuff going on all the time. So I wanted to share something. Yeah. So I'm taking a Buddhism class right now.
Cool.
I'm also getting my master's in consciousness studies. So I'm studying consciousness from different perspectives. So right now it's the Buddhist perspective. And I was listening to one of the lectures the other day, and he was talking about, there was a conference with some major scientists and stuff with the Dalai Lama and some other lamas. And they were talking about compassion and how that's an important thing. And so wisdom and compassion together in Buddhism, bringing those two together, you need both of them. And so they're talking about compassion and having, what do they call it? Loving compassion or loving kindness for all, and giving that to other people. And this woman from the US stood up and she said, well, that's all well and good. But what happens when people don't have that for themselves first?
Interesting.
And they don't love themselves and they don't feel worthy themselves and they have self-hatred.
I think it's a lot harder.
And
if you don't care about you.
Well, that's not even hold on a second. That's not even the point of this story. This is fascinating. So he speaks English. He understands English just fine. The Dalai Lama. And he was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And she had to repeat it a few times. And he's just like, you don't love yourself?
It's not in his world.
You hate it is not anywhere it is not, being from Tibet and there's other Asian countries, the further east you go.
Yeah.
He had no clue. And then he translated to the other lamas and they're just like looking at these people from the West, from the US and some from Europe. Like, what is going on? So I think we do have an issue here of
in the US?
self-hatred.
In the US?
Yes, and probably some European countries too, more Western type nations of this unworthiness.
I see where you're coming
out
from.
On others.
I feel like a lot of the problem is, and I'm not a political expert, but I think that there are a lot of things, like you could dissect that into a lot of parts. And I think one of the big parts is that, like capitalism makes it difficult to do that when everyone's out to get the most. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a double-edged sword, because you want to have nice things and you want to provide for your family. You don't want you don't want the government to tell you can only have one kid, or you have to do this job that pays this much and that's your only choice. So, you can't make everyone happy, but
right.
Sure would be nice.
Well, regardless of where it comes from, because we could definitely, this could be a whole nother podcast talking about trying to figure that out. Regardless of where it comes from, it's definitely a difference that, if we don't, that's why people are mean to other people. They don't love themselves. They don't care
I hate
about
to say that
themselves.
I work in an industry where people don't look inward to fix as much as they look outward to fix. And what I mean by that is, rather than confront your issues with your career or your boyfriend or girlfriend or your family, you keep working long hours, you buy expensive things, or you go drinking, or you continue to socialize to avoid, and that can only last so long before, like what'll happen to me personally a lot. I like retail therapy. I don't know anybody that doesn't, except maybe a Buddhist like in Tibet. But
I hate shopping.
I don't want to go shopping. I just like to have cool shit. You
do. Look at all the cool shit behind you.
Most of that is like stuff I made, or like more unique things from like squid, like octopus, like that. Did your cousin make that? Your nephew made? Yeah, I was gonna say that your nephew looked like the kind of kid that would make a cool octopus.
It has 5 legs, tentacles.
Well, he's not a real octopus. He's a.
The other ones are hidden behind his head.
Oh, taped up. It's cute.
But anyway, yes, you like cool shit.
No, I guess I was just getting at, like, I like, stuff. Like I'm not
gadgets and things.
No, like I'm not better than that, or what's the right word I'm trying to think of? Like I'm not above that or anything, but what'll happen to me is if I have an issue, I don't let them stack up. Like I'm not necessarily religious or I would say I'm lean towards the spiritual, but I have no like thing I do. I just try to manage my life fair and positive. But if I have an issue, my sort of immediate thing I do is stuff it. And I can usually get away with that and continue on. I don't go away from it and do things that are destructive to avoid it, but I do things to avoid it. And what'll happen is if then another thing comes down and something else, it's that third thing or fourth thing that puts enough in the jar to break the jar open. Yeah. So that's kind of how I end up having issues is, this thing fell apart. All right, whatever. Next day, flat tire or this or the phone. All right, I'm going to fucking smash someone's head right now. I'm so mad. Like I just want to fight someone on the street and do something dumb. Like that's the thought process.
I think that's common.
Yeah. But a lot of people in this country are not, to be fair, what you'd really have to do is you have to do a census and talk to people. No, that'd be the way to know, but it's hard to say. All I have to go on is the news. So it's like, that's not a fair assessment.
Yeah, that's definitely not a fair assessment.
What you don't see in the news is positivity, and it's too bad because you have to go high and low to get the good news. I actually have to go to. Say it again.
Did you see John Krasinski's good news?
Oh yeah, that's all that guy does is just, what's it called? Some good news.
And then he stopped after a certain amount of time. He stopped doing it. And
He's
I was
not doing it
oh
anymore?
man, I was sharing. Oh yeah, he didn't. He only did like 10 episodes. I can't remember how many.
And it's gone? Like no one took over?
Yep.
What?
No, it's gone. And I was sharing those left and right.
I remember
They're
catching the
great.
beginning of that when he was doing that, and I was watching it, and then I guess he went away, so I didn't see it, and I just forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
He probably got another job on a TV show, and he's like, "Oh yeah, $1 million, cool. See ya. Some good news can
I
suck
can't
me."
remember. I think he did talk about why he wasn't doing it anymore, but I can't remember what it was.
It looked like a lot of work went into it, or he had a team.
I'm sure it did.
Because you don't get that amount of just going on the internet and finding all those clips alone would take 3 days of solid work.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff doesn't just show up unless you're searching actively.
Yeah.
Not to mention shooting him on the desk and all the artwork he was putting up in his kids' artwork and getting artwork.
Yeah.
He was doing a lot. It was a
See, I
full-on
could do
TV
that. I
show.
could do good news with Don Bauer. And with
You already
my-
have your thing. You have a good news thing. You
Do I?
do. You've been keeping up on your. It's not some good news, but it's Don's version.
the
Shameless
Not So
plug.
Daily Don.
Yeah. You know, you do it every so often and when you feel up to it. That's good news. You're usually pretty straight. I mean, it's more inspiring than watching Fox News. I'll tell you that.
Oh,
To
that's
hear
nice.
your viewpoint on the world, that's for sure.
I feel like I feel like I've gotten a lot of people. I love your Daily Dawns. I love your Daily Dawns. And I have not done one in a long time. I did one yesterday, but
Yeah, you do.
I've been so busy. Business has been good.
Yeah.
Talking about like we'd have to do a census to really find out what's going on
Yeah.
with everybody. I only have the people I know in my life and my clients, and all my clients are there because there is some belief under there that they don't deserve, or they're not worthy, or not worthy of love, or there's something
Personal issues.
underneath of all of it.
At least they're
why
attempting
are we
to
self-sabotaging?
address it.
Yeah. But they don't come in realizing that. That's something that we uncover, and it's like, but then it rings true.
What's that like when you have that moment where you're picking through the weeds with these people and they have a realization? Is that kind of what you're going for? They're like, oh yeah. Because you're not telling them what to think. You're trying to lead them to their own success.
I'm constantly calibrating their
Right.
face, their body language, and all of that. And it might look like, that's a really good question, Don. It might look like that, where I'm like, okay, we hit the thing. This was the question, or it might be like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Or I didn't realize that was connected to this. Or sometimes it's emotion that comes up.
Do you get people that it's like really heavy, like, oh my God, you're right, and then it just falls apart, and they're just that realization like connects to 100 things back to when they were 10? And
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when we do unconscious mind work, the processes, we go back to things that they didn't remember, and sometimes they're in a space so they don't even recall it. It's before their memory.
yeah.
Sometimes we even go back to ancestor, where of course we wouldn't have been there, or past lives, or at least there's a sense that that's what it is. It's like, I don't even know where I am, but it's before I'm born. I'm not me.
Yeah.
And they can still tap into emotions that were attached to that, and they still get some kind of learning from that. And it's amazing clearing that stuff and coming back out on the other side. It can be draining sometimes, but every time there's a shift. Every single time there's a shift. And then I get fun text messages from from them. It's like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this thing happened. And
Yeah.
I'm always like, yes,
That's
I
a
do.
good feeling when you help someone in that way.
Oh, absolutely. And it really does. I mean, if they're not, I'm taking people to a vulnerable place, and I need them to know that they're safe here.
Right.
That I'm going to bring them back out of it, and it's going to be fine. Because the only way to address something, like you talked about stuffing things down.
Sure.
The only way is through. The only way is through.
Yeah.
We have to go through it. We have to go back and look. And if that's the place where our unconscious mind took us, because we have to figure out what we needed to learn in that moment, that we don't need to hold on to those negative emotions anymore. We don't need to hold on to that belief or whatever. Then that's where we're going. And then that can clear everything that happened afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we're not willing to go there, if we're not willing to look at the things that we're trying to stuff down, then
those things, everyone, including myself, you carry the time your dad hit you. You carry the pain, whatever the pain is. And
a lot of trauma. A lot of trauma, a lot of sexual trauma.
Well, I would think the only thing people are bringing up is pain. I mean, no one's going to come to you and say, something amazing happened and I want to get it off my chest necessarily.
Right, because those are the patterns like we were talking about. Those are the things that are still working.
Right.
So we're only getting rid of the things that aren't. But we do tap into those because at the same time of getting rid of anything that's interfering with people moving forward and having the life that they want to have, is we also have to build the resources. And so we can tap into those moments. Oh yeah, this thing happened when I was a kid. Okay, we're going to tap into that. And we're going to bring that in and anchor that in. Yeah, anchor in the good, because we need that to help support us to get rid of the interferences.
Oh, as like almost an example of remember things that you've done. It's not all bad. Or
right.
Yeah.
Or even if it's like, stepping into a circle of excellence when you go into interviews, if you freeze up or if you freeze up when you go on dates, like let's step into this circle of excellence. Let's take on some behaviors from somebody in your life or a celebrity or whatever that, they stand like this with confidence when they go into the date. And it's crazy how we can plant that in the unconscious mind and it's there.
Huh. I found myself through COVID when, like pre-COVID, when my job takes me all day, you drive an hour or whatever, it's far away, or a lot of driving, long days. And so there's only a lot of time to look inward at all. You just get this done, get that done. And it's just a lot to do. And so, that pandemic has, and probably for a lot of people, and I've heard about a lot of negative, you probably heard a lot. You end up thinking about your shit a lot. And, strangely enough, I hit a point where right before the George Floyd murder, I was like, I'm so sick of not knowing where my life is going, because if I can't work, and that whole thinking. So I went and filmed myself talking, and I made this video about what the pandemic means, and I edited, and I spent a bunch of time, and like I was thinking, all right, I'm going to upload this as my sort of getting something off my chest, and then George Floyd gets murdered. I'm like, wait a minute, dude, that was such a bigger deal that some white dude complaining about having to stay home during COVID I looked like I was the most pompous, like in that video after hearing about George Floyd and like all these issues coming up. I'm like, there's no way I could upload this. I would look like a complete asshole. Not to disqualify my feelings, but to the internet, I'm not a celebrity. No one knows who I am or cares about my life. I'm not like a big, I don't have a following. So I didn't upload it, but it was interesting that I did that little journey and then hit a wall with it, not necessarily in a negative way, because it still did something for me to watch this stuff and shoot it and repeat it and see it again and sort of play it over and over to get it right. And then to realize that there's bigger issues in the world. And to be honest with you, when I was about to upload it and it didn't, and the George Floyd, I'm like, you know what? I really can't honestly complain about these things. Like, I can do something about it. I can't bitching about it and saying it's unfair. It's just, that's pointless, you know?
Right.
So I was like, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? Like, I guess I kind of got a lot of little things off my chest by making it. Because when you film yourself for you and look at it, you can see yourself in, I guess, like a third person, rather than saying it like if you talk to the mirror, you're talking and listening at the same time. You play yourself back, and playing back video of yourself. You know, some people wouldn't even be able to stand it. Like, oh God, I don't want to listen to myself. I don't necessarily like how
I used to be, but not anymore.
I don't really.
You got to get over that.
Yeah, for an actor, yeah. I don't necessarily like how I sound, but it's a little bit cathartic in the sense of, you know, you can kind of judge where you're at a little, and make decisions that you couldn't make by being inside and talking and not hearing yourself.
Yeah.
But it's, people are the strangest thing, and communication is the strangest thing, and
I feel like you brought up another thing, and I think, you know, it's a good awareness of, you know, sometimes we do have to, and it's back to that looking at ourselves and like, you know, is this really a big issue? And sometimes it's like, oh wow, that George Floyd murder was able to reflect back to me that these things are like not really that important on the grand scheme of things, and really most of the things that go on in the world are not that important on the grand scheme of things. If we really go big picture, right? Yeah. We just back up away from Earth and look at it, what even matters from that perspective.
Well, didn't the astronaut, what was that quote? I'm going to butcher it, but was it the first or second astronaut to go to the moon, and then he's looking at the Earth from the moon, and he covers it with his thumb, and he says everything that everyone has ever known is behind my thumb, and you know, and it's like, how can we bitch about borders and politics? It's just so pointless seeming. It's from like that point
song,
of view.
I think it's Bette Midler, From a Distance.
Right.
You know, that she talks about all that. The world looks.
Oh, you're much better than I
am. So, and I think that's important, but it's interesting. Something came up as you were talking about how it's like I chose not to post it because there was this other thing that was big. And I think that we get so involved in that comparison, and like that my pain isn't as big, or sometimes it's like, oh, my thing. Oh, you have to listen. My date situation was way worse than that. My trauma was way worse than yours. This was way worse, or yours is worse than mine, or I don't feel comfortable because she's, you know, taller than me, or, you know, everything is constantly this comparison, instead of just like, hey, but it was still a trauma. Hey, but it was still a thing that hurt you. And can we look individually at everybody and just see them for what they are in that moment? And maybe if you would have posted it, maybe people would have just ripped you up because of that. But
when I say
maybe it was smart to avoid it, and at the same time, I still think, in my opinion, of it's not anybody else's business to tell you that you shouldn't feel upset. If you feel upset, those are your feelings.
This is true.
And I get so tired of people doing that and destroying each other and kicking each other. And there's so many suicides happening.
Yeah. Well, we are in a time of extreme judgment. People are judging the absolute shit out of each other. You know how many like celebrity artists and stuff, and some of them deserve it, but some of them I'm not necessarily sure. You know, some person will come out of the blue from thin air and say, 20 years ago you touched me. And this person is like doing comedy or an actor, and they're like, who are you? But simply by someone who nobody knows who this person is, they just tweet, and then TMZ sees it or something, and it becomes a thing. That is so not fair to just have this. This person now has a major problem on their hands, and they're going to lose a lot of their income for their family and themselves because a person said something. It's a weird world, you know.
It is a world.
They shouldn't be able
world.
to publicly demonize somebody without any facts.
And it is like people feel so powerless that they're trying to get power in any way that they can. And it's like, ooh, this gives me a little bit of power to do this thing or to say this thing.
If someone assaulted you 20 years ago, you know, if all you want to do is rip this person apart, I mean, if I was assaulted, I would want to see the person that did it go down. There's no doubt. But I don't know. It's so controversial. That the reason I didn't upload that video, it was not me thinking I don't want to be. It was not me thinking my feelings don't count. It was me saying I have to consider this in the real world and say,
yeah,
I'm a healthy individual that is about to put a video into the world that says that can be translated into everything sucks and boy, this is difficult and I don't understand why we have to do this. And the thing that I'm complaining about is having to stay home and watch TV. When this other guy just got,
what you're saying, and I think that you made the right
like this
choice.
guy got,
it just brought up something when you said it. I was like, this is an interesting thing, though.
Like
people worry.
I agree. I should be able to voice myself, and I do. But there's a forum, you know. I can't go on the internet, essentially in the same forum, the internet, as a gentleman who's been wrongly murdered, and I can't fairly complain about my. In comparison, my very easy to deal with issues. So I didn't need to put that up. That wasn't a life-changing, if I don't upload my feelings to the internet, I'm going to die. It was just a cathartic tool. And it seemed wrong to say that to the internet while this is fresh or at all.
I totally get what you're saying. Totally get it.
And it's a dangerous world out there. It's a dangerous world, the internet, to say things. I've seen.
If we came with more compassion
for
other people, and just like you did with the gentleman yesterday for the podcast, and just saying, I don't know what's going on with this person's life. I don't know where they just came from. I don't know what they grew up with. We don't know everybody's story. Even if we've spent a lot of time with them, we don't know. They haven't told us everything. We didn't walk in their shoes. We weren't in their family. Nobody really knows except for that person. And even that person is still looking through the lens of their own beliefs and perspectives and things.
Like I said, they may not even see it as an issue. They could just be day to day for them. But to me, it's totally odd. So if I even said what's going on, they could be confused just from that. That's why I didn't try to fix it in the moment. I just let it go.
Everybody's in there working with their own model of the world, you know.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to be with each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, as much as we would love to change other people, we just can't.
That's a tough one for me. There's a Facebook group that I'm a part of that's work related, and I don't know if this seems like something I shouldn't talk about in a way. I'm not saying any names, but there's a Facebook page. It's work related, and it obviously started to get post George Floyd. It obviously starts to become a lot of chatter about Black Lives Matter and race related, gender related. And this gentleman posts all lives matter. Now, I'm not saying, like, I don't think I'm the person to say one's right and one's not, because I don't even know how to even judge that. But the thing that was strange, that was wrong, is he posts that, and that's his opinion, and he has the right to his opinion. He got fire and brimstone. So that's a work-related Facebook page. Everyone that posts on there works in the same union.
Industry.
Yeah. And he got like just like hung in the town square. All these people start copy and paste his name and putting like, saying racist and just completely like accelerating the negativity of the situation. Not saying that he's right or wrong. I'm just saying no matter what he is, the situation went from here. And then the people that were unhappy that he said that took it to the 100th level. That's like saying, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to go farther with it. And if you don't like, so it's like, I don't,
maybe having a conversation or like,
like publicly or direct message a guy and say, why did you post that? I take offense. But no, they call him out, repost and everything so that they can screw him up. And now potentially because of that volume and the couple of these people who took super offense to it, started a new Facebook group and try to port these people over and get out of that one because he was part of that one. I mean, really taking it up. And that's their right to do, but it's like, at that point, are you helping?
It's very divisive. And instead of like, how can we create a bridge with people, whether it's on a one-on-one relationship basis or political parties or religious groups or races or, it's like, how can we figure out, how can I understand more of this other person or this other group? Yeah. How can I understand more about where they're coming from, why they have the beliefs, what their intentions are, and then have a chance to share what my intentions are? Because I have, in my experience, when I've done that with people,
done what?
Sat down and said, and just figured out what are the intentions here, and what are the,
just trying to take an analytical approach to say, hey, you're yelling and screaming obscenities. What's going on? Like, just instead of fighting back or yelling back, just to say, I see that you're angry. I accept that.
Yeah.
Do you want
and
to
maybe
talk
in the
about
moment for that example, it might be like, when you're calmed down, let's have a talk about this, like in the middle of emotion like that is not the best time. But I have sat down with family members that vote differently than I do. And we had discussion, and it's like, in the end, we want the same things. People are just going about them differently. Like I honestly think that if people sat down with each other, it's like, we really do want the same things. And it just looks differently how it's being approached. And I think that is really hard for a lot of people to comprehend. I think that's hard for people to understand that could even be possible. And until more people think that it's possible, until more people can look at another human as themselves and say, if I hurt this person by saying something mean or blasting them on social media or punching, whatever, like, if I hurt this person, I'm only hurting myself. Until we start doing that.
Yeah, if you're truly offended by something and you think that thing is a problem, is causing more problems a solution? No.
Right.
It's like me saying, hey, that guy stole my bike. I'm going to go steal his bike. Well, more people are going to hurt then.
Right.
You go deal with your problem, get the bike back, whatever you got,
So I heard on somebody's, I feel like it was a Facebook story or something, and I can't even remember whose it was, although I would pull it up. But it was a TikTok of somebody doing some comedian. So I don't even know the comedian that did this, but the comedian was explaining, it was basically kind of giving an example of All Lives Matter. Oh. It's actually really funny. So he was like, it would be like me saying, like my wife coming up to me and being like, babe, do you love me? And then me saying, what are you talking about? I love all sentient beings. I love everybody.
Yeah.
Of course, like, what are you talking
Well,
about?
but do you like as much as me, or do you love all men in the world too, or just me? Yeah.
So I thought that was a good
Yeah.
example to help people understand.
This
the
COVID thing has really drawn a line in the sand.
Yes.
It sure has created, through the masks and multiple things, it's divided people.
I love how you started off this conversation with this podcast thing that you're trying to do, and now we're ending with the COVID thing.
All right. The thing. It's always the thing.
This COVID thing. This
Is that
just
like,
this thing.
is that a SoCal thing? Because I was born down here, and a lot of people like in other states have told me, like, why do you call a freeway the and then the number, like the 405?
That's a California thing. I don't know.
People will be like, you
I don't
should
know
take
anybody else that does
Interstate
that.
92. And I'm like, take the 92. Anyway. People,
It is divisive.
it's drawing a line in the sand. Like, do you remember 9/11? Do you remember 9/11?
I do.
Yeah, right. No, what's that? What's that?
Wait,
Was that
I'm
a
sorry,
date?
what?
Was that a September? When that happened, it was not a virus, but it was like, it felt like it brought everyone together as Americans, not for a good reason, but
No.
and this is just
So
like tearing
against.
us apart.
Dude, can I call you dude?
You're not in California.
Is that all right?
I am.
Dude.
Hey, bruh.
Dude.
I like your polka dots, bruh.
Thanks, bro. I like your lights, your LED lights.
You like my sick addiction to LED strip lighting because it's
Sick.
real. I'm trying this
Wow,
light, by
dude.
the way. See how there's like a light here? So I was doing this light. I don't know lighting. It's not my thing. I know what lights are and how to put them on.
You look good.
Thanks.
You look good.
But there's a technique. There's a science to lighting and lighting interviews and stuff. So I'm trying to figure it out. And
I don't know if I figured it out.
well, you look a little more evenly lit. I feel like I'm
Well, that's good.
a little heavy.
I
And
have a lamp
can
over
make some
here, and I have
adjustments.
one of those circle lights over here. And then I've got my overhead light.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I started with dude.
Yeah. You
I just
said
made-
dude, and then you said, can I call you dude? And that's where we
We're
trailed
talking
off.
about, I know what we're going to talk. What I was going to say. So at the beginning of this whole universal timeout, as some people are calling it,
Yeah.
this COVID thing, I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is when we get to all come together as the entire globe to fight against something that's not human and all be on the same page. And I think a lot of people thought that we had the opportunity to do that. We had a huge, huge opportunity to do that, and we failed.
I
I think we failed
I
miserably.
have to blame leadership. That's the source in the U.S.
Perhaps.
In my
There
opinion.
are a lot of people, though, that are very opinionated.
Absolutely. Well, that's what's tearing us
Here.
up is these super extreme opinions. No, it's this. No, it's that. It's not real.
Yes.
It's real. You don't need
It's
a
very
mask. You need a
extreme
mask.
opinions.
It's
And
insane.
we just had this huge opportunity to come together. And instead, like you said, we are just so divided. It's like we're just looking for, like, what else can we be divided about?
Right.
What else can I not like about other people? Instead of, how can I find the commonalities?
Yeah.
How can I remember that, you know what, we are all in this together? How can I zoom out and look at Earth from afar and, like, hey, we're all on the same
Yeah.
ball in the sky.
If only you could. Yeah. If you could change people's minds
right?
to the big picture.
But we can't. We can only work on ourselves and then hope that everybody wants to work on themselves. If everybody just stopped and started working on themselves,
Yeah.
nobody would be worrying about what's going on with anybody else and pointing fingers or whatever, because they are so busy working on themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about, when you said with this COVID thing that you all these things started coming up, as they did for a lot of people.
Sure.
These insecurities, these things, like, all this stuff that they've been avoiding and not looking at. And for some people, that's some serious, like, they didn't have resources to deal with it, and serious, mental health situations. And for some people, it meant suicide. And other people, it's, turning to on Nextdoor here. I don't know if you're on Nextdoor over there, but it's just like left and right. People are stealing stuff from people are stealing your bike. People are stealing stuff all the time because
that's the neighborhood app.
They're trying to survive.
See what's going on in the neighborhood. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have it, but I've heard of it.
And so it's just people are doing what they can, the best that they can with the resources they have available. And some people do not have.
It brings
resources.
out, it's, like along with dividing, I think it's causing people to show character for the better or worse. Because when you don't have a day-to-day task that consumes your day, you're forced to deal with yourself to some degree. You might start doing your hobbies and stuff, but it gives you a lot more time to say, all right, I'm sick of hanging out with this guy that lives next door or whatever. I mean,
yeah. And I feel like for the sake of the 5 people that are going to watch this and
it's
comment
4
on
now.
it.
It's 4 now. We lost one.
Dang. So, for the sake of that, and people commenting and like, what is this white chick think she's doing on here talking about all this stuff? And
where do you get off?
Where does she think,
how dare
who does she
you
think she is?
Yeah.
And by the way, do it. I don't care.
I love it. Somebody, go ahead, comment on my video. Great. Help
comment
me.
on the video. Yeah. But let me just say to those that are paying attention to this, if this would have happened 4 years ago, even 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, maybe not 2 years ago, but definitely 3 or 4 years ago, I don't think I would be handling it like I am right now. But
is this related to what was going on in your life at that point, or?
Yeah, what was going on in my life and where I was in my life. I wasn't looking at my shit.
Oh, really?
But I started 4 years ago.
Interesting.
And I was like, you know what? Something happened 4 years ago, actually yesterday, that brought me to a place of, what are you doing, Dawn? You need to get clear on what is going on and where you're going.
Yeah. And
who you are. And that, I was already on a path before that of self-development work and spiritual work. I was already on that path, but this was just like, you need to get focused because you are running amok. And
what were you seeing? What were you seeing in yourself that you felt was not right, that you needed to fix, or what did you need to rein in, if that's the right term?
I don't even know how conscious I was of it. And I remember standing with you on the beach.
Yeah.
Before I left, and I don't even know if you remember, but I said, I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know why I need to leave. I just know that I need to leave, and I need to work on something that has something to do with spiritual work.
I remember that it was a volleyball court.
We were playing volleyball.
Yeah. It's funny that I notice a lot. People don't either want to or just don't, or afraid to work on inner issues in the city for the majority.
It's probably a fear.
There's religion and there's people here that care, but for the most part,
there's scary crap in there.
Well, this city, it draws in people that want things
they think
externally.
They can get happening. Yeah, exactly. They can get happiness externally versus finding it inside. Yeah. And it's scary to go inside because
for sure.
They've been with themselves their whole life. They know what happened when they were younger.
Yeah, even if you don't have much, if you just have, your father was disgusting. I mean, that can haunt you, you know?
Exactly. And that's like that much. It's like a little bit can haunt someone like this.
And everybody deals with it different.
And everybody deals with it different.
I've had issues that I've talked to people about that I don't care. I'm talking to them and I'm like, yeah, it sucked. But they're like, oh my God, I would never want anyone to know about that. Like they sounded like they would just cave in if someone knew. And I'm talking about it like, yeah, it sucked. So to me, it was like, well, I got over it or I just moved along. And they're like, oh God, I would just be hiding in a hole. Like, so it could be even a little issue, but your personality is such that you're like, I'm just going to live in my apartment and shut the blinds and die. Like just over something not even that hard to deal with.
Because our ego is meant to keep us safe. And so it can blow up that thing. And it's like, no, because remember, even if it's not a conscious thing, like in the unconscious mind, it's like, remember that thing happened. It was really scary. Don't do that. And other people have had horrific things. I mean, it's like, think about the Holocaust survivors.
Oh God. I mean,
like every interview you've seen with a Holocaust survivor, they're not still in it. I mean, they recognize it was a horrible thing that happened, but there's this beautiful, like they've moved past it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, they're all very old, to be honest, at this point. And so they don't want, they probably don't want to waste their time they have left huddled around that.
It's just not serving them. Right. It's not serving them to hold on to it. To have a really happy life, we have to let go of those things. But people don't understand that.
That part that you just said, to live a happy life, you have to let go. The place that I find that to be the most applicable is relationships. Because the longer you're with somebody, in my opinion, it's the harder it is to stay fresh and not be mad. Because little things tend to start, you pull the covers over to your side. And it's like it happened Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And you're just like, I'm sick of you pull. I got to get in here and I got to pull them off you. And then you just little thing, you start to, right. It's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to not hold on to every little toothpick of an issue. And because you have to get past it. You have to let it go. It's not enough of an issue to have a 20-minute conversation about, but sometimes that happens and you're like, are we seriously talking about sheets for 15 minutes right now? I'm going to die. Can I leave?
Love that you brought that example up though, because it's like so real. And it's an example of something that's so tiny that somebody would be like, that's such a minute thing. I wish I could fight somebody over sheets. I wish I had a man to fight sheets over, you know what I mean? Like, but then it's like, I've also been in that place where it's just like, like they don't realize they're pulling the sheets over. And it's so annoying.
Sharing space is hard to do. And, I remember having a roommate, a male roommate when I was 20.
Hold on a second. Alexa's talking. Alexa, that's enough.
Is that how we end this app? I should end the app. Or the podcast. I should end the podcast. Alexa, this podcast is over. Okay, goodbye.
Or if I'll just say, Alex, that's enough.
And I go, and the screen goes black. I respond to you like an app. You're like, he's not real. He's an Android. No, I'm Alexa. I'm an Amazon device.
I just didn't want that to be picked up in the microphone while you're talking.
Is Alexa like it's actively listening to you? So if you say something, right?
Dude,
you need to turn that shit off.
From Alexa now.
Dude, you need to turn that off. It freaks me out about some microphone constantly on. That's so weird. I would never want that in my house. It's always listening because it has to be ready to hear you if you say, Alexa. So it's listening to everything you say.
That's a good point.
Fuck that.
It's a good thing I don't
Not
say
like
much.
you're an NSA spy, but it's just like, I don't want anyone listening in my house. What if I whip it out and just start going nuts? I don't want Amazon to know. You know what I mean? It's like, it just seems creepy. It's
Alexa,
like, so
yeah.
here, let me compare this to you.
She'd be
There's
like,
a,
"Do you
there's
need more
a,
condoms.
yeah. Oh, it sounds like you would need Vaseline
You
on
need
a
some
weekly
lube."
basis. The boyfriend, not boyfriend, but the guy recorded your conversation. Well, guess what?
Yes.
Alexa's listening to you 24/7. So if you don't like being recorded, woo, here, let me play this for you.
You're gonna have to unplug her.
That's the sound effect for that. Don Bauer.
Alex Potter.
Tell us where we can find Don Bauer. Where we can see your magic and your fun pictures or whatever you got going on.
Well, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's not hard to find me, Don Bauer. I don't think there's too many of us.
Can
I'm the only one on IMDb. I do have donbauer.com that I'm sad to say has not been updated with my recent films. I have so many recent films. I need to get a new reel.
Yeah.
But I'm on there. And then my coaching website is mobilelighthousellc.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mobile Lighthouse LLC. It sounds interesting to me. I really don't know anything about it except for what you said.
Yeah. And there's more information about what NLP is on there too if people want to read a little bit about it.
I have nothing in my life that is doing anything like that for me right now, so it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I actually have, so I've got some new coaches on board and like they just got certified. And so they're just wanting to practice their skills. They're fully certified practitioners that we're doing 4 sessions for $150, which is like a heck of a deal.
Cool.
Because like
that actually sounds really reasonable as far as self-help things go.
Oh yeah.
Usually people try to gouge pricing on that stuff because they can it's so good for your soul or whatever. It's like this is a fair,
I feel like that fly that just flew around here just ran into this lamp.
I hope it did.
It was funny. It was like, I was so confused.
So Don Bauer, no, not Don Bauer. Say the website again.
mobilelighthousellc.com.
Mobile Lighthouse LLC. Check Don Bauer out.
Yeah.
Check out her amazing work. And I got to say, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your attitude.
It was fun.
And short notice, you saying, yeah, let's do this. And
I mean, what else are you going to do on a Friday night during COVID?
Hang out with me.
I miss you.
I miss you too.
This
You're
is fun.
You're a fun person. And to be honest with you, it really feels like the fun, real people. And I know that sounds cliche, but the fun, real people that come to LA, they show up and they go, I can't do this. And they leave, and then they live. And then next thing you know, they're in Denver or whatever. And it's like, oh man.
I loved it there. I loved it there. I would love to be back. Not
Really?
right now because there's too many fires. Oh yeah. When I left, I didn't feel like I was going to be gone forever. I feel like I have a nice, there's a lot of seeds that have been planted there. I still am in touch with a lot of people there. I was actually thinking about coming out recently, but it's just, fires and COVID, it's just not.
Fires, COVID, getting on an airplane sounds kind of scary still.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice having you on here. I really appreciate having you on.
Yeah,
You're wonderful.
absolutely.
Thank you, Don Bauer.
You're welcome.
I hope I see you again. In fact, we should probably do another one at some point soon.
No, yeah, for sure.
It'll be fun.
Oh, show.
Thanks, Don. I hope everyone goes to your website and a bunch of hot men send you pictures of their face.
Yeah, but with emotionally and intelligent,
guys with
mentally
jobs and that know how to tie a tie and just,
Yeah, and like to fight over sheets. I would like that.
Yeah, like, no, I want them. No, I want them. Come here. Let's be a together. All right. Bye, Don. Cute relationship stuff that only happens for the first 6 months. That's so great. Oh.
Right.
All right. Bye, Don. See you later.
All right. Bye.